Today we have me, Jake, and Colby. How y'all feeling today?
Greatness.
Slightly depressed.
How come?
Understandable.
How come?
Finding out the death of your professor randomly while in a mid joke.
Oh,
It was a serious RIP.
I feel like I didn't know. I thought it was like because you saw me like laughing, like
Yeah.
haha, you're joking, and then you're just like, hey, did we have that talk yet? And then you're like, wait, I didn't tell you.
so what's the number one thing you learned from him, though, the professor? Like, what's the one thing you took from him?
How to adapt.
How to adapt.
How to adapt and just like, no matter what, keep doing what you love.
He was the first one that truly taught me. No one knows you're making a mistake, so don't try to stress about it. Because at the end of the day, you're the only person that knows. And from that point onward, I've not stressed out about making a mistake while teaching once.
Yeah, because even all the quote unquote success I've had in teaching, all the awards and stuff, it's like I messed up the crazy idea I had. I procrastinated,
Yep.
and I thought I was terrible. But at the end of the day, they're like, here's these two, state awards. Great job, you're all this. And I was like, yeah, what was supposed to happen was something completely different.
Right.
But no one knows. So sometimes we hold ourselves to a higher expectation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if we beat ourselves up about it.
Yeah, that's when, and he definitely taught me that for sure. He taught me basically all the fundamentals I needed for teaching, cause like his class was the first like Pete class that I ever took. So like I came in there knowing nothing, knowing I like project my voice or anything, and I learned so much from that one class and every other class I had with him. You know.
Yeah, because he focused more on the actual like teaching aspect,
Yeah.
and he was one of the people that have fun and enjoy what they're doing.
Right, and he also taught me like something might be cool on paper that you have like planned out, but it's not gonna work out, and you gotta learn how to like A, move from that, and B, try to make sure you with the things you do plan out on paper do work.
And what class did he teach? Or what was
Non-traditional sports was his main one, but he also taught a tennis class. He was in the CIA.
Yeah.
He has a license to kill.
No,
Oh.
seriously, we're not
Oh, wow.
not
His
making
name means Big Island.
none of these are jokes. Like we're
Wow.
being very dead
He
serious when
told
we
us
say
this at the start of every single class.
Oh, wow.
again the
Oh,
most
yeah.
frail man you've ever seen in your life, but can move lightning fast on a tennis court.
I want to say I did, like, cause was he teaching pickleball?
Yep.
Yep.
Was he in the gym? Like,
Yep.
I think I know.
He was also volunteered to Roger Scott like every day.
Was he
And-
soft spoken?
Yeah. for the
Kinda.
most part.
Yeah.
I think I might know, but I'm not
And
sure.
the crazy thing is, like, he had so many medical issues the last couple of years,
Yeah.
but he was still teaching. Like, if he was able to walk, he was going to teach, no matter how much pain he was in.
The only time he ever missed a day was when like he had to go have surgery,
Yeah.
and that yeah, he's a man among boys when it comes to like just everything, because he's such a wise person, and he definitely changed like a lot of people's lives and gave them the tools they needed to go do whatever they were doing.
He was part of the start of IMG, too.
Yeah.
And had a lot of influence on Kinball stuff here. In
Oh,
America.
for sure. I don't think we would have the knowledge of Kimball if it wasn't for him. He was a big promoter of that
That's crazy because we did the presentation for the school district
and taught all the other.
and taught all the other PE teachers, and one of the youngest PE teachers they have.
Yeah.
But all that information we got from Rob.
Yeah, we literally. I don't think we would have any of that if it wasn't for
Like,
Rob.
we could probably figure out how the game works, but all the other stuff we did, like, we didn't even play the game that long.
No, but like I would say a vast majority of what we presented was based a lot of what Rob taught us. Because like I don't think we would have taught it the same way if he hadn't had taught us it the way he did.
Yeah, he just wanted to make sure everybody was enjoying what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think that aspect of specifically PE and teaching in general is such an important thing. A lot of teachers will teach you they'll teach you what to teach, but they won't teach you how to teach it. How to actually get somebody to understand what you're saying.
Absolutely.
You guys have goals set, like, when you're, like, from here moving forward, like, do you have goals set, or where do you want to go with, like, teaching? Do you just want to just continue just trying to make a difference, or where do you want to go?
That's a hard question to answer
So,
because
I'll go first since I kind of have more of my mind made up. So initially, I knew I wanted to coach because I had a lot of bad coaches. So when I first got into college, graduated high school, when all I wanted to do was coach. But I was at my friend's house and her grandparents were over. He's like, "Oh, you want to be a PE teacher?" He told me you want to coach. He's like, "Oh," he asked me a couple questions. He was like, "Get a PE degree so you can make sure you get a coaching job." I'm like, "Okay, cool." Because my older brother was doing sports management, so from that point, I was just basically following in my older brother's footsteps, just going with what he was doing. So I was gonna do sports management too, go to Pensacola State, then find somewhere. But he told me PE for coaching. I'm like, okay, let me look into it, and I did. And then I was in an intro to teaching class. That was one of the best. That was also one of the best teachers I had. She set up her classroom in a way to where it's like if someone has to leave, they don't have to walk through everybody, or everybody has to look at them. You can walk through the back. Everything she did just made sense. And then I was doing an observation, and I was in a math class at the school I'm teaching at now, ironically, and it was a girl. I was helping her do math. I ended up grading because she realized I was actually competent in what I was doing because a lot of student teachers aren't sometimes. And this girl didn't know what a half number was. And she was in a math class where she had the graph. And I'm like, how are you expected to graph? You don't know a half number. And then I was in private school my whole schooling. I got a great education. I knew I'd do everything I needed to do. And it was like, I asked the question, I'm like, how does this girl get all the way to 7th grade without knowing what a half number is? And how is she sitting in a class where she's expected to graph but doesn't have any of this previous information? So I'm like, I want to fix this problem. So that's why I decided to also become a teacher. And in PE, you have so much freedom to just talk to kids about life, even if you're not necessarily teaching them something that day. But now, future, I'm not sure how much I want to put towards teaching or how much time I want to put towards it, just because I know I'm having an influence, but I feel like the wave I'm starting to create is going to be bigger if I wasn't teaching. But the problem is you need money to live, and if what the other stuff I'm doing isn't bring enough in to have somewhere to live, I can't do it. But there's like a lot of school system stuff, the governor in Florida and stuff, that it's just kind of like
it's ass.
It's bad. And a documentary I saw in that same first class that kind of made my decision of like, yeah, I want to be a teacher. It was called Finding Superman. I don't remember the teacher, but it was a black teacher who grew up in a bad neighborhood, and the whole premise of the title is his mom told him that Superman wasn't real, and he started crying. And she was trying to explain to him like the same way you would if when a kid finds out Santa Claus isn't real. But he wasn't crying because the superhero wasn't real. He was crying because no one was coming to save them from their situation. And that's why it was called Finding Superman. He spent years coming up with a perfect plan to fix the school system along with someone who became director of schools that everybody quote unquote hated, but when you look behind the scenes, it tells a completely different story. She had all the right plans and all the right everything. She was trying to change Washington, D.C. And she ran into what they call the bureaucracy. Basically men that sit at desk that didn't want any of the changes to happen. And none of it happened. Everybody hated her saying she didn't do anything, but she was literally trying her hardest, and just like people were tearing her apart. Him the same way. He tried to fix the public schools. No one was receptive to it. They had a lot at that time, which we still have it now, but it's not. I would say it's not quite as bad. A lot of bad teachers that you couldn't fire because they've been teaching for over 10 years and they're tenured. Mm-hmm. So now these kids are learning nothing. And it's like, there's so many different problems that all correlate to each other.
Yes.
And it's like, if it's a problem I know that you can't fix without resetting everything, and the time it takes to reset everything will be longer than my lifespan. Do I spend my life setting that up, training other people to do it? I don't think in the long term that's my place to do. I think I have something else I need to do, which partly is this podcast, some other things, just getting the information out in the world. But next couple years, I'm not sure. Go ahead.
What was that quote that you said? It was like sometimes changing the world takes more than a generation or something.
Yeah,
like that.
sometimes dreams are so big that it takes more than a lifetime to achieve.
Yeah. That was like the other quote was like, I mean, not change the world, but at least you can spark the minds that maybe one day.
And I was watching a TikTok of a third grade teacher talking about how they're looking up the history of Nazi Germany and talking about how they had everybody saluting with the little Hitler thing. Mm-hmm. And then they looked up the Pledge of Allegiance. It led into the Pledge of Allegiance in the history book. And they looked up the history of the Pledge of Allegiance because the third grader asked her the question. Mm-hmm. The kids are prompted the question. Mm-hmm. And because of that, she was like looked into it. And they were trying to spark patriotism because the war they were fighting wasn't popular because it wasn't the war we should have been fighting, right? Yeah. And the third graders wanted to, at the assembly, cause a riot, cause a big thing. And she told them there's other ways to protest. And they looked up ways to protest in different ways, and they're like, okay, silent protest sometimes speaks louder than causing a big fuss. So during assembly, third graders sat down and were completely quiet.
That's wild.
And then the principal had the audacity to tell her that you are influencing the minds of these kids. And she was like, if I'm teaching and now my kids are now free thinkers and can make decisions for themselves, I'm doing my job, whether she gets fired or not.
Yeah.
And I'm not one to shy away from controversy or putting in the way of persecution for things I believe, but I just feel like with the talents I have and the resources I have, later on, I don't know if it's going to be next year, 5 years from now, moving on to something else makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. For me, it's interesting, my journey a bit, because like I was in like junior, senior year high school. No idea what I wanted to do really at all, and then like there's like times like, all right, let's try to figure this out, And I remember that day I was like, I really need to figure this out. Almost every period, I was like helping someone with the work in the class, even if it was like a class like I'm not good at. They're like, someone was asking me how to explain it, or like a teacher was sitting me next to someone, they're like, hey, can you explain to so and so this math problem or something, right? And I was like, fuck, man, why not just become a teacher? Like, I'm already doing this all day, every day. Why not, like, actually make it my job? And then for me, I sat down, like, okay, because, like, I don't want to teach something that I'm going to hate teaching, or, like, I don't thoroughly enjoy. So I was like, what do I actually enjoy? What's my favorite class? And for me, it was PE. I took PE every year of school. Like, even in high school, I, like, went out of my way to take PE because, like, I loved it so much. It, like... For me, PE is like special because like I grew up very like socially awkward, anxiety problems, still do, but like I'm not as bad as I was. And PE was like the one class that like I could easily just like break down that barrier and like play a game with somebody, and then like, cool, I see them a lot. I feel confident enough to like talk to them, be like, oh cool, yeah, I know this person, Whereas other classes, it would take like icebreakers and lots of time being next to one person throughout a semester for me to really feel connection. So I was like, yeah, cool. You know what? I'll be a PE teacher. And then obviously when you tell anybody that you're trying to become a PE teacher, you get like, oh, that's not a real job. Or like, oh, you're not going to study. Or like, oh, you should really like, that should be your backup plan, not like actually what you do. And I was like, the whole time I was like, no. I was like, and I was lazy about things, so like I just didn't really want to apply for anything else but UWF. And lo and behold, it's like one of the best, if not the best, like physical education program in the entire state of Florida. Like it's funny how that worked out. And then as we were having those classes and learning things, I just fell in love with the curriculum and like lesson planning and presenting and getting the kids into things. I was like, this is the best. I can't imagine teaching being any better than this. And as someone who's teaching a different curriculum right now, like a computer class, it's not like nothing tops PE. And then like, cause like back to his point about like teaching other things within PE, there's so much time you can do cross curriculum within PE. Like, if you're in an elementary school and you're like communicating to all like the teachers there, be like, hey, what are the third graders learning about right now? How can I incorporate that into my class? They make balls that like have numbers and like division, multiplication, subtraction, addition. Like you can play games that like and involve those equipment, and at the same time they're like harnessing their like math skills and like learning math through games that they don't even realize that they're doing. And so like yeah, I was like absolutely, I love it. But now, as teaching in, I believe it is a correct statement to say that we teach in the poorest county in the state of Florida.
I don't know about poorest, but it's
least funded. I would say the least funded.
Our funding is really bad.
It's awful, and like it sucks. And then like HR is like not great sometimes because like all the time. And then it's like, hey, they keep closing down schools, and our schools get overcapacitated. And it takes like 10 years to get the schools rebuilt to actually capacitate the kids. And by that point, they're overfilled again.
Yeah, and it's like our principal has been working really hard to fix a lot of things. But the vision he has for it, they won't let him do it. Like, he's one of the first principals I've personally seen that like actively wants certain changes to happen and actually interacts with the kids. Like during our basketball games,
Oh yeah,
he'll be over with the cheerleaders and he'll be over here doing a jumping kick or whatever.
he's probably the greatest principal I've ever seen.
And he interacts with the kids. He get on to them? Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, there's a rule and it's a county rule, so it's over his head about like kids not being able to wear hats and hoods. But he's like, he was like, if they can sit down and learn, what does a hat and hood do to distract them from learning?
Yeah.
Which I feel like our new principal, she has a different mentality, but she still really cares about the kids.
Yeah.
But sometimes she'll get on and she'll say, "School is your job." And I feel like that's a really dangerous mentality to have.
Yeah, because then it
But I know her specific intentions aren't bad, but that goes back to the whole system issue with the principals.
Yeah.
Not with the principal, but with the school system. How they train kids to sit down and do a certain task for a long period of time so they can throw them in the workforce, and now they're in factories working for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or in prison.
Yep.
Basically a new type of slavery. That was the whole idea behind it. That's why school is what it is right now. But I think it's a very cool thing. People our age and younger are starting to see all the nonsense because information is so out there. And all the older people that want to keep the system the same way it was are scrambling to change it. And they can't because at the end of the day, the people raising the next generation are people that have seen the results of their parents. They grew up in one parent households because the government and other entities have destroyed the family life because all they care about is money, not people. We were talking about this with one of my coworkers. He said that America is the only country that has a school shooting problem. There was one in Switzerland, and it's been over 9,000 days since that happened.
We have one.
We can't go 10.
Yeah.
We really can't go 10 without a school shooting.
And it's the same thing every time. It's like, oh, we get upset, we get sad. Politicians are like, oh, that sucks.
And it's like,
and they just move on to the next thing. They don't care.
The thing is, like, it's like the problem is everybody just wants to stay in power and not fix problems. Like, basically, like I think we talked about this last time. The whole Fox News thing about how they said they're an entertainment show, so they don't get in trouble for actively lying to the people. So what happened in the court case? They had to release a text message. Tucker Carlson, the face of Fox News, he doesn't believe a word he's saying. He was like, for specifically the election, saying it was stolen. He was like, "If you believe this, you're stupid." That's not a direct quote, but like something like that. And it's like, you get up there on national TV knowing that people, believe in you as much as they believe in the Bible.
Right.
That they haven't read either.
That part.
And you're just actively lying to people for money. And all to put certain people in power. Like, even the politicians. Not all of them are bad people, but they say what they have to say so they can get reelected.
Right. Or get more money in their pockets.
And I'm like, part of me wants to ask when did it get this bad, but the problem is, like, the whole way America was built, the whole way this land was discovered, has all been tainted.
Absolutely.
And they try to rewrite the history to make them sound like the good guys, but in all these situations where you really look at the facts,
they're not.
We haven't been the good guys in almost any of these situations. We over here say we're fighting a war against communism, but guess what? It works in certain situations in smaller communities.
That's what I hate. That's what I hate when they're like, "Oh, communism doesn't work," or like socialism.
We are not pro-communism.
No.
The atrocities of the dictators are bad.
Yes.
But people like Nelson Mandela, it's a completely different story.
Right.
When you're not tyrannical, maybe, going towards actually taking a chance on humanity kind of works sometimes. Right. That's why everybody in this generation, I'm not gonna say everybody because that's not true, but a lot of people are starting to be like, it's not black and white. It's never been black and white.
No.
But everybody wants to pose it black and white because when you make politics, sports teams, everybody picks their team, and people are fans of certain teams that have been losing every single year and will not switch no matter what. During the World Cup, screaming at their TV, throwing stuff when their team loses, crying because they care that much. So they make politics the same way. But when you're playing with people's lives, it should be different.
So much, and it should
be different.
But that's what I'll kind of coattail on, like, the people our age. I think the idea of like socialism is like more acceptable to people our age.
Because it makes sense. It's like, yeah, work together and be a community.
Right, like what? Like I think I've said this before, but like we're the only species on this earth that can't do that. You know, we are fed this lie from like day one. They're like, oh, we're humans, we're dominators. We have to dominate. Like, no, no, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
They're like what we say all the time. There's a little island that has this inhabited people that's been living there for God knows how many years,
Mm-hmm.
and they just exist in community. They ward off people that try to come by, and they just exist in community. And they're still there. They're still alive on this small island with limited resources, and they're still there.
I have a good question. So like, one thought I was thinking is, how would you feel as life would be if it wasn't really like money always all the time? Like if you just, because one thing I wanted was, like, yes, the money to support your living, but what is if you like, oh, I just want the food, I want just the love or the care for others, or you know, something without the money, because yes, comes the money, comes like, all right, a nice car, why don't you just like the nice car, but it comes with the money and everything. So do you think things would be different without the money, or do you think there's always going to be someone who's going to want some sort of power?
So I'll relate this to a different topic, but it's the same message. So back when the whole George Floyd and the really big protests, which I know there've been so many that just don't get media coverage.
Yeah.
But someone put out this great point. No, I'm not sure if I saw it or if I came up with it. I really can't remember. But there's this Timmy Turner episode.
The connections we're making.
Yeah, this Timmy Turner episode. It's gonna make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Where he kicks the ball over the fence to the dentist kid's yard. I don't remember his name. I'll Bender. Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, you can't have this ball because your teeth aren't straight.
Yep.
So what does Timmy do? He's like, all right, bet. I got fairy godparents. I wish everybody was the exact same and gray.
It's great. Yeah.
So same situation. Everybody's now this gray blob. He kicks the ball over the fence again. Goes to get it. He was like, you're not better than me now. We're all the same. You know what they said to him?
You're not gray enough.
He said, we're gray. I'm grayer than you. You got to be this gray to have this ball. But everybody's the same color. So it showed that like no matter if everybody was the same, it was a very good lesson. It was like no matter if everybody's the same, human nature will still breed hierarchy.
Well,
which I'm not saying that's true in every case, but that was the same thing. People that as long as it's people that desire power, we're going to have that same situation.
Well, I think that's also a learned behavior thing, though.
I believe that too.
So I think that concept of like, oh, because like I was just saying, like quite not long before that, like the concept that we as humans are always going to be dominators and like doing that, like, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's all learned behavior. Because like again, like yes, there are certain species that try to gain for dominance, but like they just live in packs and they just exist. You know, why are we because from a biological standpoint, if we didn't have as high capacity brains as we do, we wouldn't be at the top. Like we just wouldn't, you know.
It's like we have the power, technology, and just mind to do such great things that would help, but because and this just relates to America, since I haven't been to too many countries, lived there for long enough to truly understand their culture, but to do so many good things for humanity and fix so many problems if we just weren't selfish and share stuff. But a lot of the cures for medicine have been discovered, but it's not mass produced because it's not profitable.
Well, yeah, well, like the guy who made penicillin, he didn't want it to become that. He wanted it to be readily available, but now it's not.
And it's like when people can put a dollar sign on something, they take something that could help so many people and now make it unaccessible. But there's so much pushback on that coming up now with people our age. And now we're the ones teaching the people coming next. The older generation's about to follow out. So it's like, I feel like change is coming, but I don't think it's going to be pretty.
No.
I really don't.
It's going to be a struggle. Because, like, I hate the idea of some people like, oh, if we get someone new in office, it'll fix it.
But like I said, the same thing. Finding Superman. No matter, people have come up with a solution. People know how to fix it. But the way the system is currently set up, there's too many hoops to jump through to actually fix it.
And too many that roadblock us as well.
And too many roadblocks. So by the time, because I've really sat down and pondered, like, okay, how do we realistically fix the problem? And my answer to that was, You have to get a whole group of people into office to really change something. Or one really good leader. But the thing is, you don't live forever. That one really good leader will set you up. But if you're going to have that same format, you're going to have to find a replacement. Or everything's going to go.
Or they're taken out and it's like, well, no.
And we all talk about cycle of government. That's how it works.
Again, I think this is so fucked. I don't think you put new people in, it's going to automatically fix it, you know? Like I think you just got to start. I think the way to really experience the change truly is if we, like, start over. But, like, that's the thing, though. Like, when you talk to, like, I always see those videos where, like, it's some guy, like, getting these conservatives that are, like, shouting, like, against certain things to, like, agree to things. Because, like, on a fundamental level, we can kind of all agree on the same things. Like, realistically, we can. Like, they try to, it's trying to seem like we kind of disagree on things, but, like, really our disagreements are not that, like, we kind of can, like, agree. But granted, some parties are more brainwashed certain concepts, but, like, when you ask people, it's like, hey, would you want to just, like, live in a community where you just, like, provide for each other? Yeah, that sounds fucking great. Yeah. Hey, do you want less government involved in certain things? Yeah, actually, we all do. We all, like, but it's not ever portrayed that way, you know?
Yeah, it's like there's so many different systems that have been specifically set up, and there's history on these things to cause people to divide, to cause division, so then the higher ups can control. That's like, it's so deep rooted now that it's going to be so hard to fix.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the only really way to get, like, actual problems fucking done is, like, just starting over, like, getting rid. Because it's like the founding fathers didn't anticipate the level of which greed would go to, you know.
You know the problem. The story of some of these founding fathers that we learn in history books are so off.
Yeah, no, all like.
And some of them are like just terrible people, and some of the people painted as terrible people weren't terrible people.
No, of course, but I think, what's the quote from? It's like. No, it's from One Piece. It's Doflingo during the Paramount War, the arc. He's like, the victors are whoever wins. Yeah. Each side has their own justice to it. You know, I'm paraphrasing. I obviously can't remember the full quote, but it's like, it's along the lines of, who is righteous is determined by who wins. Everyone is fighting for something,
and it's like another anime example, because honestly, the storytelling in anime that poses these theoretical stories goes so deep into the politics of the world, and really makes you think that it's honestly impressive. But Naruto, of all animes, you look at the story, the Leaf Village destroyed the Rain Village, right? Mm-hmm. So what did that breed? That breed a character called Pain that is now coming to destroy the Leaf Village. Now everybody in the Leaf Village, which is is the main character of the story, so we're following there, he was like, do you hate? He literally looked at Naruto's face. He was like, do you hate me? He was like, the same pain you feel is not greater than my pain for the same thing I'm doing to you that you did to me earlier. So now you're sitting there thinking, if you're really watching, if you're not just like, the main character's gonna win, you're like, he's right. Mm-hmm. How is he not justified in his actions to go destroy the village that destroyed their village?
Right.
And we all talk about turn the other leaves, do this, do that, but I'm like, at the end of the day, doing the right thing, not doing the right thing doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. To counterpoint that, though, with the whole violence aspect, is that, like, you know, I know we say two wrongs don't make a right and stuff, but, like, sometimes people are in the wrong and stuff like that, and that's right, and that I can understand that, and they should face consequences, but, like, to quote another anime, we have no enemies. No one ever has an enemy. And the greatest weapon, a true warrior can fight without a sword, you know? Mm-hmm. And so, like, yes, the point you're trying to make with the pain thing is correct, but I think his method was wrong, like, obviously.
I agree, but it's like, what was I going to say? Theoretically, because I know you can go into a lot of topics with this, but, like, who really determines wrong and right? Like, let's say,
right, it's just like,
if you don't believe in religion, you don't believe in anything else, what really determines wrong and right in the action?
And that's the victors, the people who say, you know, like, hey, this is...
Like, obviously, they set up laws so you don't have chaos, but
It was when I was in high school. It was a recruiter who came into my engineering class, and honestly, I thought that was one of like the best speeches. Even I didn't go in the military, but he was just his point. What he was really trying to make was the technology's there, like it's here. It's just going to be the laws that have to catch up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was kind of going into like 3D printers, like you can print almost anything, really.
Yeah.
But like then you got the laws that come up. You can get a package delivered to you by a drone, but then you got regulations. So that's what kind of like opened my eyes. I'm like, it's there, it's all here, but then you got laws that have to catch up with that. You got robots, you got this and that, but then you got the laws that come with it. So I was like, oh wow,
it's a scary thing in the world we live in, honestly. Because like, I got this notebook where I like when I really am thinking and have a bunch of thoughts or like really upset about something or something big happens, I start writing because you write to kind of organize all the thoughts in your brain. Some of the stuff I put down is kind of like, at the end of the day, it's depressing because I'm like searching for this answer of how you really fix the problem, and the answer keeps getting to the same thing. No matter what we do, the problem won't be solved because a new problem will always arise. And they talk, which I don't fully believe, but it's like they talk about a lot of philosophers that really like delve in deep to like the meaning of life, all this other stuff. And I am depressed because it's like at the end, if you really want a world that knows peace, it's kind of hopeless. But I always ask myself, in a hopeless situation that you know you can't change, is it better to do nothing or try to make the best of what you have?
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's a good quote I like to live by. It was from Horace Mann, who was a educator, and he was like, "Be ashamed to die until you won some victory for humanity, knowing that the world will be well off having you lived in it." So that's a quote that I like to live by. Like, hey, life is limited, but it kind of creates a focus to really, try and do something to try and help out the world and make something, happen within that time. So that way, when we go, it's like, well, at least we did something within our time.
I think it's also why me and Micah both try to do teaching, to improve kids' lives, to help them just grow as people, Like, at the end of the day, I can give two shits if they know how to fucking throw a ball, I don't care if they know how to do this fucking computer program. I just care they know how to be, like, people and, like, handle their emotions and, like, interact well and, like, truly lead us in the right direction, That's, I'll stop a whole class period just to talk about that kind of stuff. I don't care.
I've done that multiple times too, where it's like a non-serious topic, and I really make a kid think through their actions. Like, if a kid does something really stupid, instead of just sitting there yelling at them, I walk them through their emotions, why they did this, why they feel this way, and what other choices they can make and other strategies. Because like one kid that just keeps having problems every single day, all I see is the teachers yelling at him, but he doesn't have problems in my class. And when he did, guess what? After that, I talked to him. Because the action already happened, and it's not going to happen again in this very moment. So me yelling at him for what he did is not going to help him not do it again. So I had a conversation with him, and the next thing you know, he's not in trouble anymore. He's not doing this, he's not doing that, because he found a way to be like, okay, I'm very upset. When I'm upset, I do this. So when I'm upset, I'm going to do this instead of what I normally do. That gets me in trouble. But I'm telling you, like, the people our age, that they look at us and it's like, oh, you dress weird, you do this, what you do is feminine, oh, you have tattoos, oh, your hair's dreaded, are really out here making the biggest difference. Because we learned that it's okay to be ourselves.
Absolutely. That probably was the hardest, not I want to say hardest, but like to get to that point took so much time for me. Because I can look back and like I can remember at a certain point, even as a child, being like, okay, I want people to like me, and I stopped being myself. And it quite literally didn't stop until I was basically turned 18, and was like, cool, every person I've ever interacted with from that point till now has not treated me like I was worth anything at all. And like, I can't say I honestly had real friends in high school. Which, side note, my high school graduating class was full of awful people, so that added to it. But it's like, I was like, man, I don't like any of these people that I try to be friends with, and I don't feel happy in myself. So I just started doing things that made me happy, and I eventually got to this point where I am now, where I fully am myself. I think it took time to get there in my early years in college, but I think I'm at the point where like I am myself, you know, fully, 100%, and I could give two shits if someone has a problem with that.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like as soon as I got out of high school and then kind of go into college, because everything was like organized. You know, like hey, you do this, this, and then you go to college, and then they're like, it's like no, I can just leave class when I want, and it was just more like I don't have to really live up to anyone's like any friends' expectations or anything. Just be yourself, and then that's where start developing like be yourself really.
For me, there was I think two important moments. The first one, I think it was my freshman year in high school, and I went to private school, right? But I'll get into that in a second. And this girl that was really good at basketball, which I was too, asked me at the end of the year after signing my yearbook, was like, "What do you do other than basketball?"
Damn.
And it really made me think. I was like, I don't really do anything but basketball. And I was like, realizing because that's already where I had coaches talking to me about plan B, and I'm like, I didn't really need to think about that. So I did a bunch of unpopular things. So I'm like, I gotta do other stuff than basketball. So I joined yearbook, which started me actually starting to draw, edit all of this, and it was unpopular. Like all the weird kids joined yearbook, but now I'm on yearbook. I changed the whole thing. I influenced multiple different cover designs. All like the pictures and captions were so much better. And I could literally like be in the game. I could tell the kids that didn't know, that never played sport, that just wanted to, be part of something, so they joined yearbook. Like, hey, you want to look for this shot. So everything just started getting better. Along with two younger teachers that actually wanted to make something good, and they weren't just doing it because they had to. And then next one was going to Pensacola State and seeing like all the things that these people told me. That's like, if you ever do this, you're going to hell. Basically, they didn't specifically say that.
Yeah.
Some of them felt that way, but I still had some good teachers that were younger and actually, taught me how to think for myself. But it was like the way everything was portrayed. Like if people have sex all the time, they're terrible people. They're not in the right spirit. And I started like I went to Pensacola State. I like actual college guy in the world. I'm like, okay, everybody just talks about so many different things that were so taboo, so openly. Everybody does this, and I started seeing the effects of it. I'm like, okay. Is it really that wrong?
Right.
Is it really that wrong? And I'm like, how much effect does this have on the world? Everybody demonizes certain things, but it's like when you really take a non-biased look at it, is it any worse than what other people are doing that they don't, crucify it like they do other stuff?
My thing is like those things, like what I always like to tell people, I don't care what anybody does as long as at the end of the day, after doing that thing, that person is not causing harm to themselves or others, and they can honestly say that they're a good person after doing that thing. If that checks off, cool, great. I could care less what you're doing.
Yeah, because when I was like saying like high school, kind of growing up, like if someone got pregnant in high school, like my parents were like, oh, they ruined their life. I'm like, or heard from someone like, oh, they ruined their life. Like, wait, like, I just didn't really think that. Like, no, I mean, if they're happy, if they wanted that, if they went there, and I'm like, no, I mean, it's like someone ruined their life. I mean, yeah, it's a responsibility, but no, like, if you're happy, by all means, there's nothing wrong. Not doing any harm to like yourself or others, or
right.
Yeah, by all means, go do what you want.
Yeah, to go back to your original question, I think the coolest moment for me, I remember, I think it was like a year ago around this time, where as a kid, I wanted to be like, I want to be a respected individual with things that people told me were things that people wouldn't respect me. I wanted to have my hair dreaded. I wanted to have tattoos. I wanted to get my ears pierced. Now, I remember one day I just got up, looked in the mirror with my hair dreaded, ears pierced, tattoos. I'm like, I'm one of the most respected teachers at this school I work at. I'm one of the people that they send to solve problems that they can't fix. And I look like things that people told me that you wouldn't get a job, they wouldn't respect you. Because at the end of the day, the kids coming up, if you show them respect, they'll show respect back.
Absolutely.
And also, it's like, you got to command respect too. And it was like,
you also got to talk to them like they're people. Because that's like, that's my biggest thing. And I even said that during the interview. I was like, I talk to them like they're people. I don't talk to them like, I mean, obviously there's like some times where like I'm a teacher and there's students I talk to them, but like, I talk to them like they're a person, which like it helps because like I'm Gen Z, they're Gen Z. So it's like, I can. Like, you know, it's not like I'm like crazy older than I can't talk to them, but like I just talk to them like they're people. And like every time I tell them things, they're like, no, that makes sense. They don't tell me like I'm saying anything wrong because like I'm talking to them like a third person.
Yeah, it was just a cool moment for me because I was like, I remember looking in the mirror. I'm like, younger me would be proud of who I am right now. I think that was a cool full circle moment for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's when I really started like being more confident in the decisions I made. What I'm doing, I'm like, I'm taking a better. I told it was going into 2021 after probably the worst year of my life, and I told Will that I was like, it was like October because I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. I'm like, if you're gonna determine something you're gonna do next year, if you don't start it early, it's not gonna happen. I told him like next year we're gonna take a bet on ourselves and see what happens. And everything that's happening right now, all the clothing stuff, all the brand stuff, actually like just living a life of an artist happened because what was it, 2 years ago now, I said we're gonna take a bet and go full in on this. We're gonna put our money down, we're gonna put in the work, and now we're here.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to me.
Just take from here to there, and then it's just.
But honestly, it was a couple weeks ago when I'm like, oh, I actually have a bunch of dates, business dates, important meetings, all this stuff. I'm like,
yeah,
it's crazy because I'm like, this is actually becoming another job. And it was a slight feeling of overwhelming, but I'm like, this is what I wanted and now I'm here, so there's no reason to fear it. And I heard a quote from, I cannot remember his name, but he's like a whole Navy SEAL, did all this stuff, real hard life, but he said, if you're too scared to do something, just do it scared.
Yeah.
And I think I tell my kids that all the time, and it's something I have to do too, because like I don't really show it too often, but a lot of times my head goes 1,000 places. Like before I meet somebody new or before I'm in a new situation, my brain literally runs through every scenario, and I can kind of like see myself in each scenario and it plays through. If they're all bad, I'm like, well, none of those things have to happen until I go and actually do it. And it's never as bad as I think it is.
Yeah.
But if I'm like, oh, this is going to go wrong, nothing's going to go right, and I just don't do it, then I just miss out on so many opportunities.
Absolutely. I kind of have a similar mindset. It's just like, cool, yeah, I can think about how things go wrong or whatever, but just like, it's so funny because every time I've done like an official observation, those are the times I get nervous because I'm like, oh, fuck, if this fucks up, I'm going to get a bad this and I'm going to get a bad that. The one thing everyone has always said about my observations, like, you're so calm. You talk to Kim's in a calm voice. You have a very calm presence. And in my head, I'm like, fuck. The balls don't work. This doesn't work. But like, you know, and then like again, that's what Rob taught us. None of that matters. But like, yeah, no, like to the other quote you were saying, I say something similar, but obviously mine's gonna be the more nerdy anime one. It's because like I love this quote. It's such a great quote. It's don't believe in the version of me that believes in you, and don't believe the version of you that believes in me. Believe in the version of you that believes in you. Which is like, to me, just...
I don't think you said that right, but I know the quote.
I think you did say that right.
Believe in the me that believes in you.
No, so it's... The first one is, believe in the me that believes in you. The second one is, believe in the you that believes in me. And then the final one is just... He says that, don't believe in that one, don't believe in that one. Believe in the you that believes in you.
Oh, right.
Because that last part is the key part. It's just, to me, the most like baseline level of like confidence. Not that like you believe in yourself directly. It's that you believe that there's a version of you out there that is doing and being where you want to be, and that is what's pushing you to do the things you need to do. Yeah. It's just the most like baseline, non-egotistical, non-self-obsessed version of like confidence. And I try to tell kids this all the time because like that way they can just try to do things without fear. You know.
I don't know. My mind's like, well, that's a good quote. Like, I was like, dang, that's really good too. Like, that's really good too. Like,
and the context of it is it's even better.
It's from Gurren Lagann.
Yeah, and the context.
It's a really good anime. It's like everything that happens in it, and the journey of the actual main character that you are annoyed by, and what he becomes at the end it's like those quotes you were just saying, and the way the story ends, you just see the progression of like when he finally believes in himself and what he accomplishes by just believing. And I say something similar to the kids too. It's a little different, but it's actually derived from that quote.
Yeah.
He's like, the kids. I'll be like, I tell them to do something. It's like, I don't believe in myself. Then I'm like, I'll say I believe in you. They'll always reply, I don't believe in myself, and then I always say I have enough belief for the both of us.
My kids always say, I think you're being sarcastic. I'm like, listen, I'm a bad liar, and I don't say things I don't mean. I say that to everybody. Like, even when like I'm talking to someone like through their emotional problems or like whatever, they're like, oh, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't say things I don't mean. I don't just say shit to say shit. Like,
yeah,
words have too much of value for me to do stuff like that. I don't. Like, if I tell you something, no matter how it's perceived from your perspective, I'm saying because I believe in that shit. You know? And so, like, when I tell these kids, like, hey, I believe in you. I want you to achieve the things you want to achieve. Or, like, you can do this. Like, I'm not lying to them. And then a lot of kids will be like, no, you're right. I could do this. You were absolutely right. You know?
Because, like, the other day, I was coaching high jump. And a bunch of the girls didn't think they could do it. They're embarrassed because people were watching them and they were too scared to fail. And I was like, all right, this is not. I'm like, this is Coach Johnson right now. This is the sports coach. This is not, Mr. P coach that has to follow school district rules that I don't always apply by. And I told them, I'm like, look, I told one girl, I'm like, you wanted to make this team so bad, they gave you your opportunity. You're on the team now. I'm like, you wouldn't be over here working with me right now if I didn't think you could do it. I'm like, I wouldn't lie to you. I don't sugarcoat things. I'll tell you, if you can't do this, can't do it, go try something else, or we're going to work something else. I'm like, you're here right now because I know you can do this. And after she finally got the confidence to do it, she got over the bar. And it was like the first time she was running into it, the one time she almost hit the concrete. I had to almost catch her. But like second day, like just went in and it was like, okay, I can do this. That's just the first step. And after that, you can achieve whatever you want. Because it's always like the guy that looked up at the sky and said, I want to go to the moon. And then a group of people that decided like, hey, I think this is possible. It's just crazy to me because it's like everybody wants to limit you and say you can't do this, you can't be this. But like think about it now. People are making a living off of doing what they love.
Yeah.
And there's no reason you can't do that. And there's no reason everybody can't do that. But when you're telling like, no, you gotta go work at Walmart and barely survive. Like why? I'll work my butt off to do what I want.
Right.
I'll go find a way or make a way.
That's what kills me now is that like a lot of old people, if I hear another old person say this, I'm gonna just lose my shit on them. Is that, oh, these Gen Z, these young kids, they don't want to work. I'm like, what? One, we have no choice.
You have no choice.
What do you mean? Like, that's just a lie. Two, I'm sorry we don't want to work a shitty job that has shitty things going on and not get paid for it. I'm glad you understand that this is a job that's a necessity, but you yourself don't want to get paid for it. Maybe to have those people actually work that fucking job, pay them a livable wage for it.
Because here's my thing, right? To piggyback off your point, it's like, let's say this apartment, this where I'm living now, or just a hypothetical. I'm working 40 hours a week at Walmart, barely making up for rent, and I can't even feed myself and put gas in my car to get to work. Why? Let's say I'm about to get evicted. I'm working as much as I possibly can physically without making myself ill or to the point of making myself ill. And it's like, if I'm about to be homeless anyways, why would I spend my time working for them? And then I grab my cell phone and start recording myself doing stuff. And eventually I make the same amount of money. I'm still in the same bad situation, but guess what? I'm on my time and I'm doing what I want now. But people see that and be like, oh, they're not working. But they've basically been brainwashed. There's no better word for it.
Yeah.
Brainwashed, conditioned, whatever you want to call it, to be like, this is how you have to do it. This is the American way. It's like the whole American dream thing is just such a lie.
Every aspect of it.
Believe it.
Every aspect of the American dream, the American ideal, the nuclear family is just all, it's all BS. It's like, as someone who worked in the industry, like the pool industry, like all of that is just propped up on the idea like, oh man, you gotta get a nice house with a front lawn, nice car, you can get a pool in the back, for the kids to splash around in. It's like, people are willing to spend so much money just for that, and have like no idea what they're doing, stressed out their lives, maxed out their cards.
Now it's a
People do
situation
not
where
know
it's
what
like,
to do with their money sometimes, bro.
where it's like, oh, these new kids aren't having kids no more because they're all gay and stuff and all this other stuff. But it's like,
Well, first off, we need to stop having kids because like population control, because like we're getting too big.
we are. But I'm saying they want us to have more kids so they can send more kids to the factories to make them more money. You see what I'm saying? Well, here's the thing: if I can't afford to feed myself, why in the right mind? Because a lot of us grew up in that situation. Not everybody. Like I had both my parents when I was growing up. I got taught all my lessons, but every Sunday we go to my grandmother's house where my dad would make sure I was reminded that he grew up in this small house that's smaller than the apartment I'm in right now with 10 other kids.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sitting there. I walk through those halls and I was like, how in the world were 10 kids raised here, and they're all out there almost all of them are out there being successful.
Right. To kind of add to that, my house first off, constantly moved houses growing up because like parents can't afford the fucking house we're in. My mom got a GED and took 2 classes of, back at the time it was PJC, but it's PSC, and was a fucking waitress at McGuire's when she got pregnant with me. My dad was this close to failing high school, got his high school diploma, and has worked a construction job that he had at 16 for the rest of his life. Never went to college. The house that we lived in when I was in middle school, there was literally a hole in my wall. Like, there is a hole, massive hole, probably like this big around. You could just look into it and see like the structure of the wall and everything. And that was my room. There was winters where like we couldn't turn on the heat, so we slept in like jackets and stuff, and like had space heaters plugged in facing towards us because that's cheaper than just turning on the fucking AC, And like we've dealt with all that shit, and luckily towards the end, my parents, I wouldn't say we were like lower class, we were like just barely almost there, But as high school started and like closer to the end of that, my dad got a better job. My mom started making more money as well, working at Navy Fed, and they were able to provide for us and stuff. And so and especially now, but like it's so funny because like me and my sister grew up in that, and now me and my sister both work jobs that like we make more than our mom does. Like I'm a teacher, I make more than my mom, and like my sister is like an assistant manager at a like big store in like North Carolina, and she makes just as much as I do.
Yeah. And to finish what I was making, it's like growing up in those situations or seeing it or just having knowledge of it, it's like if I know I'm not stable, I don't want a kid to be in that same situation I had to grow up in.
I can't fucking afford a pet right now, let alone a child,
Oh Lord.
I got one. So just kind of like to wrap up everything. Just want something like positive because I know we're
we
getting pretty deep. I want something. Cool things. Cool things. So what's one time where you, I guess, like going about your day of being a teacher, where you saw like a kid or just a few group of kids or a class where you said, like, you were really proud of them, like they're going places, that they're going to be successful growing up, like they inspired you in some sort of way, like something good, like you're going somewhere and you will make it. Did they say something to you? Did they do something? Did they do something to help someone else because of what you did? What was something like?
I'll tell you one moment. There was this kid that came in last year late, and he was all kinds of trouble. He showed up, cussed out a teacher. He's been in multiple really bad fights, and he's like a grown kid. He's about my size. And I kept talking to him every day because every teacher didn't believe in him. He wasn't that smart. But I talked to one of the teachers that we have a class called credit recovery. So if they're failing, they can go to this class, get switched into a different program so they can get their grades up faster, but make sure they're still getting the core information. And I was like, is he trying that class? And he was. He was actually trying to get better, but he just had so many, like his home life is terrible. There's so many other issues. And I just kept telling him, I'm like, hey, get out of middle school, get to high school. And I'm like, if you know what you got to do, you don't have to finish high school, get your GED, get your degree or whatever, and finish the job that way, right? And he got in a big fight at the end of the year. He ended up being in ILR, which is in lieu of removal. But I was just driving down after he got out of middle school, and I saw him walking down the street, and I'm like, everybody said this kid was gonna be in the jail cell. There he's just walking down the street with a basketball, just dribbling. And I was like, nobody believed in him, but a few teachers that took their time to talk to him every day is the reason this kid's not in bigger trouble than he used to be. Because I just remember he came from jail. He was locked up in juvie and then came into the school. And now this kid's just walking the street. And from what I'm hearing, he's doing fine, playing basketball and everything.
My story isn't like that in a way. It's more like interpersonal, because like a lot of my connections I have with my students are very like emotional, interpersonal, like emotional growth, or just like things like that. There's this one girl who I talked to all last year, talked to all this year. Boy problems through the roof. Like new boy every month, same drama. You know, but that's like all because like trauma she's dealt with, and like she wants to feel validation. Do you know what she told me today? She told me a certain guy has been going around school telling like even teachers that like he likes her. And then I was like, oh, well, like, do you like, because me being like, oh, so is this a guy you like, or like, what's, like, you know, is this a new boy you want to try to date, whatever, after, like, because literally, we have this running joke whenever she, like, tells me about this news, she's like, oh, I'm dating so I'm like, all right, cool, I'll see you in a month for your cry session, you know, like, because it's just, like, when she says the boy's name, I'm like, oh, it's an awful boy, it's gonna treat her like shit. But she was like, she told me today, she said, no, I told him I appreciate his liking me, but I really just wanted to not date anybody and focus on myself. And I was like, fuck yeah, man. Like, I was like, I literally told him, like, I'm actually really proud of you for that. I know that took a lot for you to do, but to be able to, like, sit there and be like, I want to focus on myself is such a huge thing. And then this is probably my favorite story. I have a student who has anxiety problems and mental health problems, and for my birthday this year they wrote me a note. There's a lot of things on the note that I don't want to like say, but the one thing they did tell me is that you're one of the main reasons I don't end it all. And that like hits you so hard. And like because there's so many points, again, like we've talked to all this whole podcast, where it's like there's so much shit going against us, but when like stuff like that happens, it's like, fuck, I'm doing something right.
It's like, we know why we're doing it, and that's why when all the other stuff comes, all the nonsense, all the BS, all the teachers that have nothing better to do, that's why we keep doing it for moments like that.
Yeah.
And I'll end this by saying this, and after coaching, going through it, my first year coaching, I had a random opportunity that I didn't think, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to do this, because they told me to do this, do that to get here, and I'm like, okay, I did all this, but I don't have an opportunity, and it just came out of nowhere. I spent all my time talking to these kids, fixing their mentality. I focused so much on like mental health, just mentality, everything, and it was a lot of based off of what Kobe taught. And I was finally, that's what, after I won all my awards, I got this, and then it's like everybody that taught me what I needed to do, that got me to the position that I am, that gave me the level I was, and still staying like level-headed, understanding that like what I'm doing, like don't get ahead of yourself, don't believe you're better than anybody else, just keep pushing. We're all gone. I was just like, it was hard because it's like everybody that got me to the position I am, that I want to look back and say thank you, are now all gone. But it's like, because I'm here, I know that I have to keep pushing, because the same phrase that you remind me that I always say is like, some dreams are big, some dreams are so big that it takes more than a lifetime to achieve. One of my quotes my dad said on one of his last sermons was, there is no success without a successor. And my whole paradox of success thing kind of goes into that. It's like, yes, I have all the success, but at what cost? And at the end of the day, success is kind of like an endless race, to where right when you die, you pass the baton on to your next person to keep chasing the dream until you finally get there.